Hi, this is Bruce with a follow-on tutorial from my cold and dark to taxi-ready condition for the Xtreme Prototype GLJ Model 25 Delta Learjet. This is in response to someone's request for taking off and in-flight procedures and how to handle the power in this thing and the angle of attack, etc. So just to briefly, we're at one left here, or will be shortly taking off on one left at Fairbanks flying to Nome. And just to tell you, there are four main features that we'll want to pay close attention to here when we get to the autopilot feature. There's your autopilot. There are three other switches that I find extremely useful: altitude, nav lock, and speed over here. The altitude will allow you then to use your rate of climb indicator. You can see a little yellow triangle there moving up and down here with my mouse wheel, and then that'll activate when we push the alt with the AP on. The nav lock will be associated with our GPS, which by clicking the CDI over here, you can see the GPS indicator, and then this switch changes correspondingly. For right now, though, I'm just going to leave it on the V-lock for heading, because I'm going to manually fly this until I'm lined up with the Fairbanks VOR and go from there, because I'm taking off in the opposite direction. I find it easier to fly it manually early on instead of fiddling around with too much autopilot too soon. The one thing I will say that may help the person that inquired is to hit the speed button at the speed you want to maintain, and it'll go to with the autopilot on. You can still fly everything else manually, but it'll hold your speed relatively close to what you hope to have, and it's a busy aircraft with a lot going on, and that's a huge assist, I think, as it gets going. So let's go ahead then and taxi on out. I think we've got things lined up the way we should. We've armed our thrust reversers, our steering, we'll leave it on until we're out there, and then we'll also turn on our landing lights and turn off our taxi lights and also turn on our strobe. And I think that'll put us in a good condition. It takes a bit of thrust to get things moving. Just at first here. In case those are curious, this is what it looks like, the aircraft. I'm using P3D version 4.3. Right now my Ultimate Traffic Live is not on, and I'm using an i5 that's overclocked, as well as a NVIDIA GTX 1070 video card. Looks like my Ultimate Traffic might be on here, that or it's the P3D's traffic up there. Okay. Alright, here we go. We're lined up. Got our heading bug lined up. Pretty close there. I think that's about right. When we take off, you can see the shortest distance would be a left-hand turn. I'm not using ATC to just keep things calm. Just please be patient. This is one of those things where when I'm talking and flying, it's a bit of a pain. What I'm going to do to talk less and fly more is I'm going to take off at this heading. I'm going to manually fly and climb. I've got my elevators here down just about one bar below that line, not quite, but almost, and that'll give me, I think, a good rate of climb to start, angle of attack. And then I'm going to hit that speed button with the autopilot about 250 and go from there. So let's just watch and we'll see how this plays out. By the way, this green here is an acceptable angle of attack, just to highlight that. Okay, let's take off our steering lock. Everything else looks good. Oh, we should change our lights now. We need to get our strobe, our landing light, the taxi light can go off. Everything else looks good. Okay, well, let's go. Just a little slow acceleration here. When it engages 100%, it goes into the go-around power mode. You don't need to worry about setting that. Here we go. We're looking for a, because this is a filled out fuel tank situation and it's heavily loaded, I'm going to rotate at 140 and the V2 about 144. It's going to come fast. Here we go, rotate. And gear up, positive rate of climb. Get my angle of attack down a little bit so I can more readily see what's going on. Watching my airspeed now. I'm going to get my flaps up. And I'm going to engage the autopilot and I'm going to take off the wings level and the attitude. Don't be surprised when that happens. And right about now I'm just going to hit my speed just to get some speed control set. Okay, you can see, you can hear the thrust pulling back. That's going to hold my speed for me. Now, what you may have noticed when you engage the autopilot, and it'll throw you off, is that it automatically engages the wings level switch and the attitude switch, and that can cause all kinds of havoc. So be sure to unclick those, just as I did, and that will save you a ton of grief. Just see how it's holding my speed down below 250? That's where I want it, especially coming around here on a tight left turn. It's doing everything for me, like it should. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my flight one now so I can more easily see. I'm going to zoom in so I can more accurately navigate. There we go, that's much better. Okay, watch my rate of climb here, it's 1,000. Going through 4,700 feet, coming around. Okay, now level it out a little bit, and we'll angle it now back towards the Fairbanks VOR. Just watching our rate of climb. There we go. Keep it simple. It's a great jet, but I think just for me personally, it's nice to chill out at first and not overdo it. I'm disarming my thrust reversers now, and I could also disconnect the anti-skid here. Time to do that without being too busy. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and switch this over to GPS, because what's going to happen pretty soon is I'm going to hit the Alt and Nav lock buttons rather, and go from there. Still climbing at 1,000, that's great. Speed's still reduced below 250, that's good. I like to have some control over that and not get too wild. It's really easy to accelerate beyond what you want. Okay, let's go ahead and engage the nav lock out. Now we can adjust our rate of climb. I'm going to kick it to 3. Let's put some more speed into it. I disconnect the speed button there, and I'm going to run the power up. And when we get closer to the 250 knot mark, then I'm going to go ahead and hit the speed switch again. I'm going to try and gently get it to 250 instead of rocketing through it. There, that's good enough. Reapply the speed. Now I've got AP Alt, which controls the rate of climb, and the nav lock is on for the GPS, which is indicated here. You can see now we're on track, and we're climbing through 7,500. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of that for the distraction factor that it can be at this point. And of course, when we travel through 10,000 feet, we'll turn off our landing lights and we'll accelerate up to 280 knots and proceed from there. It's a tricky aircraft. There's a lot going on. Many of the autopilot features are strange, very unusual, and you're not going to find them in other aircraft, which can really throw you off as well. Like we took off the wings level and the attitude buttons were automatically applied with the autopilot. I had to disconnect those. Just keep your eye on those very things, and it'll keep you out of a lot of trouble. Alright, now I'm going to go through 10,000. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my speed first. I'm going to go ahead and accelerate it. I'm going to pull off now the landing light switch. Apply a couple of these with the left click. They're already on. Okay, very good. You never know. Okay, and then when we get to about 280, which is coming up shortly, right about in there, I'm going to go ahead and hit the speed switch again, and this will climb real well, so you can take advantage of that and get up there real quick. Just by using my mouse wheel right here, I can adjust the rate of climb very easily. And that's it for right now. I think I'll go ahead and pause, and so we can shorten up the video. Okay, we are going to go ahead and take the speed button off again there and hit some more throttle. We're going to bring our speed up now. 2992 jumped it past 18,000 into the 19,000s. Quite a barometric change there, and we'll just watch our airspeed indicator here. 285, 287, so it's climbing nicely. We could reduce our rate of climb down to 2,000 if we wanted to, just to help things along a little bit. Again, this has got a lot of power, so that red mark right there is the one we're not going to want to cross. I think we'll just kick it in there anywhere. That's a good spot for me. So it should calm it down to around 330 knots, 450 knots true airspeed, about 500 miles an hour, or Mach 0.75 or 74 at this point. And we'll just continue on the trip. So maximum speed is 477 knots, optimal speed is 420, ceiling is 45,000, the range is about 1,000 nautical miles. And I'm going to go ahead and just put it back now on pause. When we pass through 29,000 feet, the speed indicator here will automatically switch to Mach. So let's just see if that happens. There it goes. I just wanted to show you that it's at 29,000 that happens. Okay, we're approaching our cruising altitude of 42,000 feet. I didn't have to do anything with the autopilot. With the alt on, it automatically is leveling out at 42,000. So we've got now a Mach speed of 0.8. It should settle down to about 0.77, and indicated airspeed 239. True airspeed is 471. I'm just looking at the little pop-up that occurs when you put your arrow over the speed indicator there. So I'm going to probably pull back the speed just a little bit. We don't want to get too close to that white triangle there, so that'd be fine. That's closer to 0.78 now, so give your passengers what they're paying for, right? They're paying for speed, so we'll try and crank it out as best we can. Just now, the rest of the flight just maintains itself. What we're going to be watching for is leaving it on the left wingtip. Let's see if I can find the proper way to zoom in here. Left wingtip, total was 1180. You can see the needle is slowly dropping. This is your total over here for all the fuel on board. Right wingtip, right wing fuselage, left wing tip. What you're watching for is the tip to get down to low point there, and then we're going to go ahead using the mouse wheel and run that fuselage tank up to transfer, and that'll bring this fuel here back into play. Otherwise you'll be wondering, why am I running out of fuel so quickly? So things should settle down now. Got the engine sync switch there if you want to use it, and the rest should be gravy. So now for the longer flight, we'll just settle in and let the things go by. I'm going to put it on pause so that we'll shorten this up. Oh, by the way, these visors do work. Okay, I'm about 160 nautical miles out of Nome, and I've got, here you can see the indicator, or over here as well. I've got my VOR set. I think this is, I like to descend a little early. I'm plenty high. So what we're going to do now is we're going to enter into our new altitude setting. And I'm just going to run it down. We're practically at sea level here at the other end of things. So now we'll just be conservative. Let's put it 5. And then we'll set up our rate of descent. So, and pull back our speed a little bit. Supposed to keep it at 75%, which is probably why that horn is sounding, so I'm going to adjust. You're not going to see like a real helpful tool except for here. See that little RPM thing? Just keep it above the 75 to prevent that from happening. I think I'll just go ahead and lock in the Mach just to help things out. So now we're descending slowly at about 1500. I'm going to increase the rate of descent to 1800. I figure about 1,000 feet for every 3 miles at an 1,800 rate of descent. That's a very big approximation. Depends upon your speed, of course, too. I'll go ahead and pause. We're doing fine. Maintaining about 250, 256 Mach 0.8 right now. I know it's a little fast, but what we're doing is with the rate of descent that I've selected, we're going to keep, again, the RPMs here about 75%. If we go below that, we'll hear a horn, as we did earlier. And as we get a little bit closer on approach, we'll go ahead and arm our thrust reversers. We'll leave our spoilers alone. And the radio altimeter I'm going to leave on. And then as we're getting closer to landing, we'll get the landing and taxi lights on, both of them, the anti-skid switch, and then we'll hit 8 degrees of flaps at about 202 knots, and then 20 degrees of flaps at maximum of 200, and then 40 degrees at a maximum of 153, depending upon our landing weight, which would be approximately 14,000 pounds. Landing with 40 degrees of flaps, we'll be landing at a speed of 130 VREF. So just to let folks know that, and I think that'll help. And then when we land, we'll just go ahead and hit our thrust reversers and spoilers if needed, and go from there. The rest is gravy. So hang on, I'll pause it and get a little closer. I did use my spoilers briefly, my air brakes, to slow down my speed. That's right here underneath that protective bar. I just left clicked it like so, and then left clicking it again disengages it. That'll help if you struggle with your air speeds. And then I just went ahead and hit the Mach switch again. It should switch over to speed when we descend through 29,000. I'm just going to go ahead and mention that you can set your cabin altitude now to the field elevation that you're descending to. In this case, it's just about sea level, so I'm just going to run this thing down. To about 400 feet. Yeah, that's about right. So that'll take care of that business. We're still descending. We've got 97 nautical miles to go. We're at 28,000. The speed went from Mach to speed automatically, and I've got my heading now adjusted. I've also set my course to 279 because we'll be landing on the runway 28. Winds are pretty light, 320 at 6, so we should be good to go. I'm just noticing that when the percentage drops below 70 on your engine percentages gauge here, left and right, that's when you get the air horn. I thought it was 75. I just thought I'd point that out. So right now I'm at 74%, and descending around 270 knots at 1,900 feet per minute or so. So we'll be there shortly. 80 nautical miles. We're doing fine. Okay, we're descending now down through 13.5. I've put it on the heading select and also on the V lock here instead of GPS, which isn't indicated by the nav switch being in the up position. They both interact, so you can press either one you wish. I'm heading here for the ILS that I entered for runway 28. It's just an indicator only here for me, and so obviously we'll have to fly it appropriately. I'm going to go ahead and put my anti-skid on now, and then when we get down to 10, we'll go ahead and hit the landing lights and the taxi lights as required, and then we'll bring our speed down to around 200 or so and apply that 8 degrees of flaps, and then we'll just continue to slow as we get closer. We're continuing our descent now, approaching 10,000 feet. Looking at the fuel gauge here, we had about 130 pounds left, or 19 gallons in the wing tank, so I went ahead and, using the mouse wheel, I put the fuselage tank up to transfer, just to make sure we don't run out of fuel here at the last moment and have to glide our way in, not good. Alright, we're getting down close enough to 10. We'll go ahead and hit the landing lights, taxi lights, turn off a couple of the other ones now, and we should be continuing our descent down to 5,000, and then the glide slope will be intercepted at 1,700 feet, so we'll have some more descending to do. Don't be hesitant to use your spoilers. You can do that, or the slash button on the keyboard will do the same thing interactively. So we'll just continue our descent. Okay, I'm on a long final approach. I need to be at Mach D at 1,700 feet, so I've just decided to level off at 2,700 feet. I've selected the speed to keep me down around 200 knots. I've got my 8 degrees of flaps applied at that speed, and I'm going to bring down the speed here shortly, and we'll apply another degree of flaps. We'll go to 20 degrees of flaps here shortly. So I'll take some speed off here again. Turn my powers. There's that minimum amount of percentage. The horn's going off. But that's okay. It's speeding in. We'll give it another degree of flaps here. Down to 20. We're doing this well and ahead of time, so we don't have to stress out right at the end and rush. set things up well ahead of time, it makes it much easier to fly. And again, I had to use my spoiler several times. My rate of descent was fairly steep. I could have started it a little sooner, and just had to maintain that speed. So use it if you need it. Okay, we're going to drop now down to 17. So we'll be down around that glide slope position right about here. Still quite a ways out, but with the visibility as bad as it is, I'm just going to go ahead and stay low and slow. Let it all play out. Okay, we're still lining up. I've changed things around a little bit. I've got it back on nav on the V-lock here setting, and speed still holding, and I've just left it on nav lock. You could put it on heading if you wanted to. I've got it lined up here with the runway's heading, so we should be coming into Mukdeh, and then we'll start our descent. You can see the glide slope is still above us. The route is still slightly to the left of us, and we'll just continue on in. I slowed us down a little bit more. We're leveled off at 1,700 feet. We'll intercept the glide slope here shortly, and got the gear down now, flaps 20, and then when I reduced my speed down to 153 here in a little bit, then we'll go ahead and hit flaps 40. Landing again at about 130 knots VREF. Should be set to go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull back on some power now, because we should be intercepting the glide slope, increasing our rate of descent. Should be following it down. Watch. Rate of climb is creeping down. That's good. Dropping back on our speed, looking for that 153, which is right about there, so that's easy enough. Dropped it way too far. Shouldn't be talking at the same time. A bit more fuel here. It's nice to know it'll fly very nicely at this low speed. We're going to have to take off. We're obviously climbing and we're not catching it, so I'm going to go ahead and just descend here. Bring it back. There's... I'm not sure what happened with the glide slope. I probably need to do a little more research. But that's okay. We got a visual on the field now. Keep my speed around 130. Wouldn't hurt to have a little bit more, but it's pretty easy going weather right now. So adjusting my trim so I don't have to descend as much as I am. This is not a good approach, so you'll do better than that when it's your turn.
Approaching
Just adjusting speed and
7.
angle of attack, keeping it lined up. There's the red on white, which is what I was looking for, so I can shallow out my descent here a little bit. About 6,800.
500.
Holding our speed around 130. Now we're red on red, so we'll shallow up our approach. Get a little bit more fuel. Keeping it at 130. Should see white on red again. Decision height. A little low, obviously, all the way in. There's the white on red. Red on red is too low, but pretty close. And then we hit the thrust reversers. So we're down to about 80. There we go. Well, we missed the center line a little bit and didn't see over the dash very easily. I could have adjusted the eye sights on that. Like I say, it's hard to do a video and talk at the same time. But I hope that helps. And I'm sure you'll do better than I did. That's just how it goes, isn't it? And I hope that this has been fruitful for those that have chosen to watch, and all learn from each other. Comments are always appreciated. I'm always learning, and that's partly why I'm sharing this video, so we can share with each other. Anyway, have a good flight. Enjoy yourselves. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.